a little differently, so it's a bit of a problem. This is a marvelous deck of cards painted about 1450s. There's argument about the date because some say that it was painted by Bonifacio Bembo. The artist's name is B-E-M-B-O, Bembo, like the type design. I don't know if it's the same family, maybe in northern Italy. But Bonifacio was a marvelous little artist in the 15th century, 1450s or so. And he painted a whole deck of tarot cards, from which this is one example, for a wedding ceremony. They were probably presented as a nuptial gift to a marriage between one of the Sforzes and one of the Viscontis in northern Italy, two famous noble families in northern Italy. And this shows Il Matto, as he's called in Italian. He's got bare feet there. You know, René Magritte did a surrealist painting of a pair of shoes with bare feet coming out there. And a lot of people, students of surrealism, don't realize that that's an old artistic tradition related to tarot. He's in rags, of course, like the raggedy quilt. It could be a patchwork quilt. This is a dervish because he's a fool or a holy man. In Sufi tradition, there's a whole lineage of spiritual teachings that's called the Malamati, M-A-L-A-M-A-T-I. And Malamati, see, I don't know what language it's from. It could be from Persian, it could be from Old Persian. I don't know about that. But Malamati, it sounds Arabic. Is madness, is path of blame or shame. So the Malamatis do things deliberately, you know, like Chevy Chase, right? And gotcha. Right? And there's also a very deep tradition, Native American work, and among Hopi and other tribes of sometimes Kosharis and Koyimsis who come and they'll come in and walk backwards and cross-dress and talk in tongues, glossolalia, and do things nutty, or get a piece of peaky bread and stuff in their ear, you know, just to mess with people's heads, right? And so it's a path of blame or shame. And so the fool and the king change roles in carnival. So there you see another folk tradition that has its deep roots in Commedia dell'arte and in Taro. Taro is very ancient. We don't know how old. Nobody knows the origin of it. There are some good guesses. But that's a reason because it's an esoteric teaching. So the history of it is very seldom written down. It's very hard to find documentation about things. They find the pieces, the fragments of pieces, but almost nothing as far as documentation. In this case, Gertrude Motley, who's a marvelous lady, was a librarian at New York City Public Library, which has an excellent collection of tarot cards, by the way, in early printing. And she did a beautiful book on the deck that was, some cards are lost, but most of the pieces are available at the New York Public Library collection or nearby the Morgan collection. And she did a fine scholarly study without being an adept of the tarot, without having done any of the esoteric work. Of course, that put her at a great disadvantage. But from the point of view of Western scholarship, she had nice work. I think it's called the Tarot Deck of Bonifacio Bembo or something. I can bring a copy of the text in. Okay, so he's shown with the club, and his hair is looking like there's something about Mary. Here, see, that's really too bad. This will not do. I'm going to have to lower this. And I have no idea what gremlins come in the middle of the night and change these. Not going to be easy, folks. So you see what's up there? It's 8 rays in the sun. And since we got the electronics, of course, that blots out the other stuff. I don't know. Can you see most of it?
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps or hurts. So this is called the essence. So that's really the substantial, it's curious, called essence, the substance. It's the main thing. It's the main thing. When we talk about dreams and keeping a log of your dreams that increase your capacity to recall them, it's not just preparing to go to bed so that you just don't hop in the sack. You know, unless the situation calls for it. But as a general practice, you know, you want to wash up and brush and floss, right? And take care of business, and you go to bed. And so you're in bed and the transition's been made. Then you invoke your dreams. So you do your self-recollection, which can be simple, can be internal. You don't have to make gestures, but so you pause for a moment, you know, do a om, a mental om, catch your breath, right? It's a standard gesture of self-recollection. We have to collect ourselves from time to time before doing anything important, like consigning yourself to the world of dreams. You know, collect yourself and get level with the world in even. For now, or stand off for now, right? Don't go to bed angry. Don't go to bed hot. No, unless the situation calls for it. So the dream state arise in me. You call for the dream state in yourself. May I recall my dreams. Step 2. May I understand the teachings of the dream state. I say the dream state because it's a state of mind rather than a specific dream. Don't worry too hard about specific dreams. They're like thoughts. They come and they go. But if you can recall the dream state, being in the dream state, that's the important thing. And if you can reconstruct, if you start, you've got a hook on it, and you start, that's why the log is good. You write down 1 or 2 key elements, don't bother with the details, then more key elements will come out of your memory. See, the principle is to give you an exercise that allows you the possibility of accessing the deeper orders of consciousness from which your artistic visions will spring, because that's where they're rooted. I don't have a master key to your heads. For most ordinary people, the practice of exercises such as the ones I'm presenting to you seems to work. Particularly for sensitive people and artists. This is the great treasury in your minds and bodies, because your muscles in your bodies also have cellular memory. It's not all in your head. Sure, it gets programmed, it gets logged there, but the actual neural transmission from where you stubbed your toe earlier in the day or earlier in the week is going to come to you. And in fact, some very careful studies have been done now, are being done as we speak, about how that takes place. The study of pain transmission, the neurotransmitter substance P, how it comes, fires in the amygdala, what it conditions the response of the substantia nigra, that it exudes beta endorphins that counteract substance P. All this chemical business is going on. So, but your brain, your dream state is dealing with the pain and neutralizing it so you can get some sleep. Or it comes to you as a messenger. So it's all your whole body. It's not just your head, your mind. The dream is where we integrate. Because you're not using your conceptual mind for walking around to drive down freeways and answer test questions and do exercises and stuff. And so you turn that circuit off, and then the brain gets flooded with these messages that have been on hold. That's very important for you to pay attention, for all of us to pay attention to those every day, every night. That's why you have to get more sleep first. It's the precondition for allowing that to happen. If you're overstressed and you're getting too little sleep, then you won't dream properly. Then you can't be receptive. Then you can't, or it's very much harder to integrate your whole body to feel right, so you feel like working and inspire them. Listen, pay attention to your dream, and take action. Try to embody them. This is called the essence. It's not the fool. The fool is a misnomer. So do not call this 0. It's number 0. Sometimes in traditional cards, it's number 22. I'll tell you a little about tarot traditions, but there is no single tarot book in print that tells you the whole truth and all. Do not rely upon it. If you happen to be interested in the topic, you look at them, you may have a collection, maybe have some cards, there are all kinds of cards out there. This deck of cards is not available commercially. This is a deck of cards with which I've been working for 25 years. Next week I'll tell you how I work with it. Today I'm just showing you the major arcana. This class is programmed according to the minor arcana that comes in a minute. Show you this. So here we are. This is our essence. This is us in a fetal stage, if you like. As we've been conceived from, as all life comes from the star, our nearest star, which is the sun. So it's very solar in its orientation, which is what a lot of people suppose that perhaps it was Egyptian and connected with worship of the sun god Ra. But Ra, as a figure of worship, comes in fairly late in the Egyptian part. Well, the sun's always there in Egypt, I guess, but not distinct as a deity, which is the 18th dynasty. So anyway, there's the sun with its 8-pointed star up there. The same 8-pointed star that characterizes the sun in Huichol art, for example. In the Huichol peyote art, 8-pointed star. He's carrying a wand. This wand is called a was, W-A-S, and it's specific. It has the head of a jackal, which you can't see very well here. There's a bit of an eye that's indicated, and the long ears of the jackal, which would be the black African jackal sacred to the god Thoth, T-H-O-T-H. Thoth is one of the 9 great gods of ancient Egypt. 9, number 9, number 9, number 9. Right? And he becomes, what, Hermes, I guess, in Greek mythology, the trickster, Hermes the trickster, the messenger, the angelic, of course, that is a messenger between gods and humans, or Mercury in Roman lore. These gods are really different, they're not identical, but they inherit traditions from one another, so they're often called the thrice great Hermes. In the Renaissance, when a lot of this lore was unearthed again, the scholars that were at the core of the Northern Italian Renaissance, because the Greek text came over from the Arabs, kept them in the Latin text, and also Arabic text, although that wasn't the line that was followed. In Spain, yes, but not in Italy. So this is called thrice great Hermes, or Hermes Trismegistus, which is a Latin compound term meaning the thrice great Hermes, or 3-part Hermes, or Hermes as Thoth and as Mercury and Hermes. That's the sense of that. And to Hermes, it was imagined that Hermes Trismegistus was a historical person who existed maybe in ancient times. They didn't know when. But that he had compiled all this mystical lore about not only the tarot, but about astrology and healing and mystics of numbers and all the rest of it. Well, there was no such person. It was a body of literature, and later scholarship has since begun to parse that out to see, well, what came from where. We still don't have the origins. I have a theory. I think that they came in with paper into Europe, that there is a long tradition of painting archetypal images of the human psyche that's associated with one of the Sufi schools. There are many Sufi schools. This one in particular is called the Naqshbandi. I won't bother to spell it out. Well, maybe I should. N-A-Q-S-H. Naqsh. Naqsh is a Persian word. That's N. That's your N. A is implied. Q is this letter, and the she is here. Notch. Notch means a seal or a stamp, or like a chop in a Chinese name, or a seal or an emblem, some emblematic figure. And they're called a notch body because they use an emblematic figure, which is the enneagon, that 9-pointed star. If you learn how to draw straight lines, enough of the class learns how to, some of you have got it, then I'll propose to teach you how to draw a 9-pointed star in a circle in the correct manner. It's not just any old manner. And they use emblematic stones, so they were called the painters. You'd be happy to know. The painters are the artists, because they didn't use song or music like the whirling dervishes. They didn't use poetry like Rumi or Mark Khayyam. They didn't use begging and doing dervish work like the Malamaki. They were painters and artists who provided visual imagery. And they worked through visual imagery at a very deep level or a very high level, above and below, saying as above, so below. That's one of the keynotes of Hermes Trismegistus. That's the pose. You'll see it in a minute. So the tarot cards really are the archetypal images that are intended to work directly on your primary visual processing centers. You look at them with your eye, and the image hits you and goes through your brain pan, and what you see is what you get. That's the idea. So all of the logic and the scholarship and the Western art history is basically in a different world. We can argue for parallel universes. That's what I do. And I say, aha, well, I'm going to try the impossible here to bridge from my parallel universe of words and logic to describe what is seen. So the whole show that's going up next door, which has a lot of primitive art pieces, that's where we're going to do some show and tell. You know, some of those pieces I've been around for so long I've forgotten who did them. And since they're in my own personal collection, I haven't bothered to make a note of what date. Or even some pieces I don't know what they're made out of. You don't have to look, and if it's too hard to tell, I don't want to mess with the art, you know. So it's ironic, isn't it? That the art historian should have a collection about which none of the art history has been done. So I said, okay, I'm teaching this in class, and put it up the same way because these are teaching pieces. And I've meditated on them, I've thought about them. Many of them I've brought into classes over 34 years here and shown and used for their direct impact. And incidentally, some of the pieces, they're important when they're done by, I guess, you know, if you're interested in personalities of artists. And that makes a difference, you know, if you're going to assess the value of it, but they're not for sale, so, you know, that's not important. The authenticity of the piece, well, they're copies, they're lithos, they're silk screens, there's some originals, they're all mixed in, you know, so even that is a very checkered picture. Basically, the idea is what you see is what you get, and that's the important thing for teaching. Okay, so here's our essence. We're about ready to take a step right on the edge of the cliff. This goes into space-time. And our spirit then this is being born. And when we're cut loose from our umbilical cord, from our dear mother cheetah, in traditional decks you'll recognize this as a puppy dog, a dog nipping at the heels of the so-called fool. And here it's a cheetah, it's in Egyptian costume. You're going to do tarot cards, it helps to have some continuity so you have a consistency of the costuming. So this is done with Egyptian flavor, so it's a cheetah. So these are like our parents. And the paw isn't around the leg, so he's going to be able to follow. This isn't going to keep him from falling over, on the contrary. This has to be cut and lets loose there, then the umbilical cord severed, and he falls down into the real world. And this is the river of life, the river Nile. You know, the river in Egypt, deny. Well, we don't when we're born, we accept. And what gets denied is that comfortable, warm, soft, dark place there where all we can hear is the distant music of the world outside. We're in zero gravity. Well, zero gravity is what the mirrored room helps to recapitulate. This is crocodile, Nile crocodile. Ooh, yeah, on land and in the water. You gotta watch out for. Hey, our essence always gets gobbled up by the Nile crocodile, so to speak. It's become symbolic of our ego. So when we're inside the crocodile, our spirit's inside, we've got this crocodile, and that's to toughen our skin, our first area of defense, more than a line of defense, right, against the world. And so the game in life is swimming in the river, the stream, like James Joyce, River Run, as Finnegan's Wake starts, and to learn to transcend and to grow out of our skin. Learn to shed our skin, to transcend the defenses of the ego. The ego always keeps us from seeing things as they are, substituting instead the second best, which is seeing things as we remember them, or as we wish they would be, as being in the past and future, but not in the present. Oh yeah, we come and we cross over the present, going from past to future from time to time. When you really get into your work, though, and you're in your studio and you forgot to look at the clock, you look outside and it's dark. Does that happen? You're in no time. Then you transcend your ego. Maybe. At least you're in a state where that's possible, optimally. Okay, so this is a good card to color, and it's a card with which the teachings of the Tarot always begin. They begin with a zero. The zero as a glyph, as a numerical glyph, is a whole, represents wholeness. It's actually infinite. Keep going around in either direction wherever you're going, wherever. So you go through the cycle of the whole deck of the Tarot cards, which there are 80 cards, and you wind up in realizing the essence. And that's what the program is, to do it in one lifetime.